Tonight, tracking the trajectory of a monster storm. Hurricane Helene explodes in size.
Everyone needs to take it seriously.
What officials are already calling a nightmare scenario. Another attempt to topple the government.
The House has lost confidence in the government.
And a Conservative MP accused by the Prime Minister of making a homophobic comment responds.
Meetings don't take place in a bathtub. It had nothing to do with sex.
Israel rejects global calls for a temporary ceasefire in Lebanon as tensions escalate with Hezbollah.
When I get older, I will be stronger.
The Canadian rapper accused of sexual assault. And hooked on hoops for life.
I don't know what secret I have. No, I just enjoy playing basketball.
Passing the passion for sports through generations.
I want to be like that when I'm that age. Like, I want to still be able to come on and play.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. A long and dangerous night for millions in the path of Hurricane Helene as it slams Florida tonight. And even before it made landfall, there were ominous warnings. The U.S. National Weather Service is forecasting storm surges of up to 6 meters, predicting they could be potentially catastrophic, even unsurvivable. Also tonight, a grim message to those defying evacuation orders to mark their bodies with identifying information. CTV's Joy Malbin starts us off.
Hurricane Helene began hammering Florida with rain, powerful winds, even tornadoes.
I think we got a water spout here, guys.
Parts of the state like Fort Myers already flooded out. Even before making landfall, federal officials warning this hurricane will bring storm surges up to 6 meters high, what they call unsurvivable.
We could see up to 20 feet of storm surge. So just think back 2 years ago to Hurricane Ian, and 150 people lost their lives, the majority of them from drowning.
Federal authorities staging search and rescue teams along the coast, activating 3,000 National Guard troops and bracing for widespread power outages that could last weeks. Even from space, this storm is so big, fueled by warm ocean water. Community leaders pleaded with residents.
Please leave. Just please do. It's not worth it. Just get out. It'll either be here when you get back or it won't. But don't leave yourself in harm's way.
In Tallahassee, the state capital could face a dead-on direct hit for the first time. That's where Canadian Robin Yateman is hunkered down.
They're talking about 100-mile-an-hour winds. I'm not sure I'm going to have a roof on my house tomorrow. I'm worried about windows blowing in. Hopefully that's wrong. Hopefully that's the worst-case scenario. But we're just not sure because we haven't had one hit this hard before.
The intensity of this storm unlike anything seen in this area. With roads and bridges being closed down, there's a sense of urgency and a final warning from local officials to those who didn't heed the warnings.
If you're just bound and determined to stay and not get out of harm's way, go ahead and take a black magic marker, write your name, your social security number, everything on the arm, or we can identify you.
Chilling words, Omar, as the National Weather Service describes Helene as one of the most dangerous storms in recent history, already affecting a dozen states from Florida up to the Carolinas. Omar?
All right, Joy, thank you. In Ottawa today, the Conservatives started a second attempt at toppling the government, but once again, it was overshadowed by deteriorating decorum in the House of Commons, putting party leaders and MPs on the defensive over unparliamentary behavior. CTV's Rachel Aiello reports.
A day after failing to bring down Justin Trudeau's Liberals, the Conservatives tried again.
It feels a little deflated in here.
Pierre Poilievre presented a second motion of non-confidence that will come to a vote next week.
The House has lost confidence in the government.
The Bloc and NDP have yet to signal that they're ready to trigger a snap vote, meaning this challenge in the Commons is likely to have a similar outcome to the first. But with more chances to vote non-confidence coming, emotions are running high.
Every member of this House should be outraged.
There have been a series of heated exchanges already this sitting. On Thursday, the House Speaker docked questions from Poilievre for not joining Jagmeet Singh in making amends for a contentious moment between the two leaders last week.
He is a fake, a phony, and a fraud. How can anyone ever believe what this sellout NDP leader says in the future?
After Poilievre said this, Singh stepped onto the floor and could be seen off camera pointing and shouting at him.
The chair therefore invites members to be more judicious in their choice of words and behavior.
Later, the Conservative MP who Trudeau called out on Wednesday,
We're used to casual homophobic comments from the other side of the House,
offered his side of the story after a tense moment about a luxury condo purchased by the government for the Consul General in New York.
A luxurious bathtub has nothing to do with meetings. The Prime Minister's answer had nothing to do with the questions, but it had nothing to do with sex. I wasn't thinking about sex at all.
Some MPs say the level of decorum on display so far this sitting is more fitting for a frat house than the House of Commons.
What other workplace would this stuff be acceptable?
Politicians and staffers who were on the Hill during past minorities say the tone is emblematic of a parliament in its dying days.
Every parliament starts off sweet and ends sour.
People's careers are on the line, their futures are on the line. And one person losing their temper with another can literally change the course of political history.
MPs have long warned of degrading decorum, but the closer we get to the next federal election, those who have been there before predict it will only get worse. Omar?
All right, Rachel, thank you. U.S. President Joe Biden announced close to $8 billion in military aid for Ukraine today.
Hey, I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance. I've also directed the Pentagon to allocate all the remaining security assistance funding that has been appropriated for Ukraine.
Biden met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House, and just hours after that announcement, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump said he would also meet Zelensky tomorrow. Trump has criticized the Ukrainian president for not having won the war against Russia. Despite calls from the U.S. and other allies, including Canada, for a ceasefire in Lebanon, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has instructed his military to continue fighting with Hezbollah with, quote, full force. At least 96 more people were killed in Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon today, and the Iran-backed militant group claims it fired more than 100 rockets into northern Israel. CTV's Heather Wright reports on the escalating tensions.
Reserve soldiers arrive in northern Israel as the armed forces call up troops in preparation for a possible ground offensive into Lebanon. The Israeli Defense Forces says it attacked 220 Hezbollah targets in the last 24 hours, while Hezbollah fired dozens of rockets into northern Israel. Lebanon's foreign minister says roughly 500,000 people are now displaced, while more than 600 have been killed. Among the dead, the aunt of Canadian Reem Shawar.
This isn't just Hezbollah that they say they're going after. They're going after people. There's no regard for human life.
Israel insists it is only targeting Hezbollah and has no plans to pause its campaign, despite calls from the international community, including Canada, for a 21-day ceasefire. Arriving in New York to speak at the United Nations, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his pledge to keep hitting Hezbollah. But world leaders say they will keep trying for a diplomatic solution. French President Emmanuel Macron, who put forward the ceasefire proposal with the United States, was in Montreal today with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and vowed to keep trying.
We will work hard in the hours to come in order to convince Israel to commit and indeed deliver the ceasefire for 21 days.
Part of Israel's stepped-up offensive against Hezbollah is an effort to get roughly 70,000 people back in their homes. People like Canadian Michael Mijeka, who has been displaced for nearly a year.
This whole time since the 7th of October, every single day, daily, they are firing rockets at civilian areas, destroying civilian homes, not allowing our children to go to school.
Hezbollah leaders have said they will continue to fight until there is a ceasefire in Gaza, while Israel wants Hezbollah to completely withdraw from the border region. Two key demands as world leaders look for a diplomatic solution. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. The mayor of America's largest city, facing sweeping corruption charges, insisted he is innocent today.
This did not surprise us that we reached this day.
and I ask New Yorkers to wait to hear our defense before making any judgments.
Eric Adams was indicted today for fraud, bribery, and taking illegal gifts from Turkish nationals in exchange for political favors. The indictment followed an investigation that started in 2021. The 64-year-old former police officer refused to step down and will appear in court tomorrow. A Canadian rapper is also facing legal troubles tonight. Kanon, the man behind the global mega hit Wavin' Flag, which became the promotional anthem for the 2010 World Cup, has been charged with sexual assault for an alleged incident that same year in Quebec City. CTV's Andrew Johnson has the details.
Four-time Juno winner Kanon was arrested in Quebec City on Monday, the day before he received a SOCAN award in Toronto honoring his biggest hit. Wavin' Flag went #1 in more than a dozen countries and was used as the official song for the 2010 FIFA World Cup. That same year, police claim Kanon, whose given name is Kanon Abdi Warsami, sexually assaulted someone between July 16th and 17th in Quebec City.
It's not uncommon for sexual assault victims to wait months, sometimes even years, to come forward.
Kanon faces one charge of sexual assault. The victim was 29 at the time of the alleged attack 14 years ago.
It's going to be one of these two defenses. It didn't happen, or it did, but it was consensual. Those are generally the two directions that the defense will go in. So if there is some evidence of sexual contact, and we're talking about something that happened 14 years ago, that it wasn't me defense probably isn't going to work. So then the question is, was it consensual?
Kanon has been a champion for refugees, drawing on his own experience escaping war in Somalia at the age of 13. CTV's W5 followed him to Africa in 2011, when millions of people faced starvation, fleeing the war-torn country.
It's like you outside of yourself, watching the former you be in a position that you just wish nobody was ever in.
In recent years, Kanon has worked in television and film. The 47-year-old directed a movie called Mother Mother that recently premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. Kanon hasn't responded to the allegation. A preliminary inquiry into the sexual assault charge is scheduled for next April. Omar.
All right, Andrew, thank you. A Japanese man who spent almost half a century on death row, convicted of murder, has been acquitted. He has the distinction of being the world's longest-serving death row inmate. Now 88 years old, he was found guilty of killing an executive and his family in 1968 and then sentenced to death. Lengthy appeals to fight what he long claimed was a false accusation and conviction delayed his execution. A coalition of disability rights groups say it's launching a charter challenge against Canada's medical assistance in dying law, saying parts of it are leading to premature deaths. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
This coalition is fighting for the rights of people with disabilities. The group says Canada's law on medically assisted dying discriminates against those not facing imminent death.
By allowing assisted suicide solely on the basis of disability, our government is telling Canadians with disabilities, and for that matter, all Canadians, that their lives are less valuable, that their suffering is best relieved by death rather than support.
After it became law, MAID deaths have increased 4.5 times since 2017. That year, 2,838 deaths were medically assisted, compared to more than 13,000 in 2022. The data doesn't reveal who were disabled. The coalition is launching a charter challenge. It argues MAID is being offered too easily to people who are socially deprived, living in poverty, and lacking health supports.
I've just recently been asked, why would you choose to live rather than when you had MAID? I went in for a bruised hip, not because I was suffering, because I've got a disability. Can you imagine how flippant that is?
But supporters of the law say health practitioners are acting responsibly.
Overwhelmingly, it's actually people who are affluent, educated, well off that are having an assisted death. There's nothing that would demonstrate that those who are more vulnerable are being approved for MAID.
Dying with Dignity says their polling shows that more than 80% of people with disabilities and chronic illness support medically assisted dying laws. And Omar, the data shows that medically assisted deaths account for just over 4% of the total number of deaths in Canada each year.
All right, Judy, thank you. Coming up.
Certain hospitals around the country have gone back to masking.
Nova Scotia's new take on an old COVID protocol, plus
$1 million over the last... That was a bug.
the insect attack on the campaign trail in BC. COVID cases are on the rise again in Canada, and with cold and flu season approaching, some parts of the country are reintroducing pandemic-era measures, including Nova Scotia. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth reports.
A partial mask mandate is back in Nova Scotia hospitals and provincially run healthcare facilities for visitors and healthcare workers.
Anybody who's in areas, clinical areas in the hospital, so inpatient units, clinics, where we're providing direct patient care.
Infectious diseases specialist Dr. Lisa Barrett says the latest COVID variant has brought alarming levels of community spread.
You don't need to look at the provincial numbers on surveillance to know that there is a lot of COVID out there.
COVID cases are on the rise, not just in Nova Scotia.
Certain hospitals around the country have gone back to masking.
These changes are new for Nova Scotia, but not for some other parts of the country, including New Brunswick. Earlier this month, masking requirements were reintroduced for healthcare workers and patients by New Brunswick's Horizon Health Network. The latest versions of the COVID-19 vaccine have been approved and will be available in Canada later in the fall. Dr. Barrett says even with multiple vaccine shots, the disease is still deadly.
There are still more deaths, more hospitalizations from COVID than even from influenza.
The spread of numerous respiratory viruses is causing a high level of concern. Katrina Bellavance was caught off guard when her baby contracted RSV in February 2023.
She was hospitalized for several days, and when we made the call to take her into emergency, it was because she couldn't breathe.
Bellavance says the return of some mask mandates could help spare others what her family and daughter endured. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Well, bees can be particularly active this time of year, something British Columbia Premier David Eby now knows all too well after he was stung during a news conference.
We've supported TransLink with $800 million over the last... That was a bug. It was a bee. I'm fine.
And terrifying moments caught on camera when a coyote grabbed a dog belonging to Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee and his wife. The family dogs were in the backyard when the coyote ran up and snatched one of them in its jaws. Lee's wife, Brittany, was able to chase after it and freed the animal. She shared the video, warning others to be vigilant. Still ahead. You've got all my love. An undercover star's performance at a karaoke bar. Live Nation Entertainment has announced plans for a new outdoor concert venue in Toronto, promising to bring the world's top talent to the big stage.
We've learned a lot of things from Adele in Germany, from things we've done in California, and so we feel very, very confident about next summer. Rogers Stadium will be built at the former site of Downsview Airport in North Toronto with the capacity to host 50,000 fans. Organizers say they drew inspiration from SARS stock in 2003 and will offer a seasonal alternative to existing venues in the city. It is expected to open in June, but will not last forever. The area is slated for housing development within the next 3 decades. And Las Vegas is no stranger to performances by music royalty, but rarely do they take place inside a karaoke bar. You've got all my love, whether it rains
Disguised in a wig, glasses, and oversized jacket, this is Coldplay frontman Chris Martin singing the band's new song, All My Love, to an unsuspecting crowd. Martin eventually revealed his identity to the stunned audience. Quite the surprise. Decorated Olympic swimmer Maggie McNeil has announced her retirement from the sport. The 24-year-old from London, Ontario famously won gold in Tokyo, but didn't realize it right away, squinting at the leaderboard because she wears glasses. McNeil also took home silver and bronze, and she competed this summer in Paris. She says she's looking forward to discovering who she is outside of swimming. After the break.
Know that I'm still able to do things that allows me to get out and play basketball.
The man who is winning the game of life. We leave you tonight with a New Brunswick man who is proving that age is nothing but a number. And when he's on the court, he is typically holding court as an inspiration for other players. CTV's Sarah Plowman tells us why.
Wayne MacKay isn't one to be sidelined. Just shy of 88, that makes the point guard a standout.
Just enjoy playing basketball with whoever shows up, you know.
Twice a week, you'll find MacKay at this gym in Sackville, New Brunswick, playing pickup, taking on players often a quarter of his age.
Well, it's tougher for me, because I gotta move a little faster than I'm available to do right now.
He can run, he can shoot, and he knows how to play well with his IQ.
MacKay's bond with basketball runs deep. He played for Mount Allison University in the 60s and went on to coach varsity and junior varsity. He's been recognized locally and is considered the father of modern basketball in Sackville.
Early in this year, I saw him sort of slowing down a little bit. But you give him a little bit of, juice. You've just seen it a little while ago. He's ready to be the old Wayne.
Watching MacKay play for decades inspires others.
I'm only 59, so he's got 30 years on me. So if he can do it, I can do it.
I want to be like that when I'm that age. I want to still be able to come on and play.
He might be the oldest on this court, but don't count him out. He's still hungry to win.
I don't know what secret I have. I just know that I'm still able to do things that allows me to get out and play basketball.
A mentor for generations of players. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
A true MVP in so many ways. That's a snapshot of this Thursday. Hope you can join Heather tomorrow. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching and good night.